Okay. It's kind of a quick impromptu live. I actually think I have lip balm in my hair. That's how fast I was trying to get on. So if you see lip balm in my hair, that is accurate. That is not an actual fabrication of your imagination. Also have a new setup, so I'm trying to get used to that. I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about solstice and what is going to be happening for a lot of us during the solstice. Everyone is affected by the solstice in different ways depending on where you are. So you'll see a lot of videos where I did a video, I don't know if it got posted on here or not. I really can't post anything over 15 minutes. It gets wonky on here unless I'm live. So I did a video about assuming everyone was in the same place, assuming everyone's in the same timeline. You know, you can have someone in front of you. That does not mean they're in your timeline. It merely means they were in front of you. And the same thing, you can be standing around people and they might not even see you, unless you move something or unless you make some kind of movement or talk to them, they won't notice you. And a lot of people don't understand that. They take that personal, not understanding that technically they're in a different timeline and a different dimension in a sense. And, no one saw you until you actually, move something. Happens to me a lot, where people won't see me until I actually move something. So don't assume everyone's in the same place. Don't assume everyone's in your timeline. And you will see this kind of shown to you when you have two people in a situation, or and each one has a totally different idea of what just happened. If you spent the day with someone and they're explaining the day and you're explaining the day, and there's two completely different synopses about what happened during the day. It's like nothing that they said is how you experienced it. And when you start seeing everything through that lens, in a sense of everyone's kind of having their own experience, and that means they're in a different timeline. So don't be disappointed when they're not in yours. And don't take it personal when they don't remember it the way you remembered, or they're not having the same experience you're having. So as we go through the solstice, a couple things start to happen. One, we start getting a download for next year. For a lot of us, you'll start getting the download. And whether you get that consciously or unconsciously, this is going to trigger some different stuff. It's going to trigger what's not in that timeline next year for you to start to wrap up. And that does not just mean a reality you have to start wrapping up. That's also going to mean anything that you have to do energetically to clear that's not going to be aligned with the what you have to do next year, the timelines you're going to be in next year. So it's always going to be different for everyone. But pay attention to where you're at. Pay attention to if all of a sudden things start coming around that you haven't seen in a while, and you start getting, some people call it tested. I do believe we get tested. Our universe will test us to see if we're going to go back and play in the old stuff, or if we're really ready to step up, kind of to the new stuff. We're always going to be tested to see what we're going to do. Are you going to go back and play in the old stuff? Are you going to roll with the new realities you're creating, or go back and go into more of a safer reality? So just be aware of those things. Look at, what do you feel like you're going to be drawn to do? What do you feel like you're supposed to do? What is coming up emotionally? What are you starting to see? Where do you have someone on a pedestal? Where do you not treat someone with the same respect because you have stories around it, right? I'm going to do a video more in depth on this later. But it came to my attention that there are certain people that, because of the story I have around my relationship with the person, I don't give them the same benefit of the doubt. And I benefit of the doubt, that's more of a human term. I'm so blinded by the emotion I'm trying to clear around the person that I don't see where they are in their process until I clear that batch of the emotion. Then I can see why it went down the way it went down, why that interaction had to go that way. And I can all of a sudden understand that. Whereas if I didn't have that story around that person, then I would have seen it clearer. So we talk a lot about putting someone on a pedestal. We talk a lot about, lifting someone up and putting them there. Our twin flames, we do that for. Our, soulmates. Now, everyone's a soulmate, everyone's a twin flame, but there's going to be those people, usually romantic. It's romantic involved. And sometimes it can be blood family, though I do feel like kind of blood family goes the opposite way, Whereas the twin flames you're going to put on a pedestal, the ones you're going to deem as more important, you know, even though technically everyone's a twin. But when you're in those romantic cycles, you're going to let them get away with a lot. You know, you're going to give them a pass for everything. Whereas other people, just people that you don't have a story around, you don't have a background around, you don't have all of that stuff convoluting it. You know, you're not going to give them the same, you're not going to give them the same 1,800 chances, right? But when we start operating as a higher aspects of ourselves and higher selves, we treat everyone the same. There's no hierarchy. There's no difference. The twin flames, even if, like I said, everyone is, I want to keep iterating that, because if not, I get everyone really stuck in that twin flame Cinderella story stuff. And that's not what twin flames do, and that's not what twin flames are. That's a very romanticized version of a twin flame. Twin flames show us the most we have to clear. They show the best and the worst of us, you know, and that's what they do. But technically, everyone in your life is a twin. They're a facet of you. But there are certain ones, and like I said, usually the ones that involve the romantic feelings, sexual feelings, where we give them that pass. You know, we let them get away with stuff. We don't treat them the same way. And we really have to start to look at where we do that. And then on the flip side, look at where, and normally to me this is more blood family when you go into this direction, where you can't see where someone is in ascension because you got too much story around it. You're not even giving them the benefit of the doubt at any point. You just automatically go back into the story. You automatically go back into all of the historical stuff. You know, even in the moment, it's not really historical stuff because it's coming up right now for us to clear it. But it'll feel like it's from 100 years ago in a sense. And remember, we're not only clearing our stuff now, we're clearing our stuff from every timeline, everywhere. But look at where you can't even see it. You can't even look at why someone is doing something. You know, why did they do something completely disrespectful? You know, and then you can look at it one way and go, oh, now I see. I see why they did that. I see why they haven't visited. I see why they had to maybe bring their animal with them when they came. Whereas because of, we let their past actions start to influence how we look at them in the present. And that's where we kind of recreate this whole timeline as to what's going on. And that's not what's going on. We have to be able to get above that stuff. So we have to be able to look beyond it. And during the solstice, you are showed a lot. During any of the, you know, season changes, it's a big portal. Usually the portals open weeks ahead. For some people, months ahead. But you're going to start to see. You're getting the downloads for next year. You're going to start to see what you're going to be focusing on, and all this stuff has to go. You have to be able to see what you're doing. We have to be able to recognize what we're doing. We have to be able to really hone in on what we're doing, hone in on why we do stuff. Why am I putting this person on a pedestal? And on the opposite, why am I not even looking at this from a higher perspective? And for a while, you won't be able to. When you're clearing a lot of stuff, a lot of story, a lot of emotions, a lot of chords around a person, whether you would consider them positive. I'm going to use positive or negative here, good and bad, just for you to get the polarity of what we can do. It's still the same program we're running in a sense. We're just going at it from an opposite point of view. We're not going at it from the same point of view. We're going at it from an opposite point of view about how we're treating people. And who we're not giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. And the other place, we're giving them way too much benefit of the doubt, you know, way beyond it. Now, that doesn't mean as a higher self, you're not going to give someone a lot of chances, because we do. We will give someone a lot of chances. But there comes a time when we know we're trying to hold someone into a timeline they don't want to be in. We're trying to get someone to do something they're not ready to do yet. We're trying to drag people with us in a sense, and they're not ready to come yet. It's not their time yet, and that kind of ties back around to what we're talking about earlier with everyone's in a different timeline. We cannot assume everyone's in the same one, and when we try to assume everyone's in the same one, that's where we start getting ourselves into a lot of disappointment and a lot of, because we have an expectation around that timeline, and when these people aren't showing up for it, these people aren't doing anything, we can get very agitated with them because we just want them to do something. So many people I could see beautiful timelines we could have, but we just couldn't get there. We just couldn't get there. It wasn't a pure timeline. Everyone had an agenda. We just could not get there. And some of those, during the solstice, we could fall back into some of those really old patterns. Not because we're really falling into something, we're creating it again in a sense, which we will be doing in a lot of cases, but we kind of create it again because we start believing the program again. If you can discover, explore the fact that, oh, I still have a part of this program here, I'm clearing another layer of it. Don't go all the way back into it, and then we kind of create the whole thing again. So look at when you're dealing with people. I know there was a situation last week where I kind of created this whole story around something because it's something I have to resolve around a person. It's kind of the other side of it, where because of, issues from the past, I'm letting that now kind of, I'm keeping it going. Nobody else cares. No one cares when we keep this stuff going but us. So when we start doing this and we start carrying it out, looking at one timeline as to why they're doing all these things, instead of being able to look at them from our highest aspect, instead I'm going back and playing in my ego with the whole thing. I'm not seeing it from my highest aspect. I'm not looking at it from where are they in their ascension process. Why did they have to do it that way? Look at what's coming for that person and understand all the stuff they're going to have to clear, all the stuff they're going to have to go through. When we don't really see things that way, we get really bogged down on the story of it. And the story is what recreates it. It keeps the old going. It keeps the old just continuing and continuing and continuing. And we get frustrated with that because we don't realize we're the ones doing it. We want to blame everyone else. Everyone else is doing it. They're doing it. Everyone's doing it. No, we're doing it. We're the ones that keep it going, and we're being shown that. We're being shown what we keep going. We're being shown where we give passes to people. And for some of us, we might be able to really feel what next year's going to be. And usually my template will start coming in now. I'll start getting a more solidified look at what it's going to look like. Around October, I'll kind of start my next year. And I'm going to use linear years because our linear years do have a cadence to them. Everyone's kind of in a different place every year, but normally mine kind of kick off around October. Even if I might be finishing stuff up in January. Like this year, I finished some stuff up from last year. But I was already kind of in my new timeline in October. But I was still kind of finishing up some loose ends that I had to kind of close up. So before I could get into the next thing. So we're going to be doing a lot of different things. We're going to be finishing the old. We're going to start to be able to see the new. And like I said, even if you can't see it yet, look at what you're being shown to work through. That is a big indicator of what your next year is going to be, because you can't take it with you. We're either going to look at it by what we're being shown, and for some of us it might be difficult. For some of us, we might be looking at stuff and going, I don't want to have to deal with this. I don't want to have to resolve this. For some of us, it might not feel that heavy right now because we're able to pick up quickly on what we're doing, whereas maybe last year we couldn't. Maybe 6 months ago I couldn't pick up on it. Now I can see what I'm doing. Now I can see that I'm recreating the same timeline. I'm keeping this, kind of this air quote, bad blood going, because I want to keep recreating the same story about why someone's doing something. My ego's doing that instead of looking at what they're doing from a highest perspective and really honing in on that, so I can see how I am creating the whole thing over and over and over again. But I can't do that anymore. I have to have that done. It has to be done so I can move on to my next thing. And we can't move on to our next realities. We can't move on to our next roles if we can't complete what we're supposed to be doing in our current one. And if this is a year where you're clearing ancestral karma, if this is a year where you're working through your abundance karma, if this is a year where you're just starting your awakening, and you're going through kind of the rough and tough stuff and it's all hitting you at one time. This is a year where you're just getting into the fifth dimensional energies. You haven't really started to rearrange things yet. You're just feeling what that feels like. I've seen a lot of people in that phase going on journeys, and traveling and saying how happy they are just to connect with people. And and really be able to feel what happiness is. I saw someone say that today, and they said, never knew I could be this happy. And just, they were traveling and they were meeting people. And when you're in that place and you can sit there and say that, and that's why they're there. They're there. One, they're quantum jumping through all this. They're doing something in 30 days they probably would have on a normal timeline done in maybe 2 or 3 years to visit all these places. And they're being shown that happiness being activated within them so they know what it feels like. You know, if we never know what it feels like, we don't know what we're trying to get to. The human body isn't used to feeling that connection, that joy. Now, they might still be equating it with something outside, but eventually they will understand that it's just that thing that activated it. That thing's not really important. Everything we use is just an activator. People are just activators. You know, everything we have, it just activates us to the next thing. It activates us to the next place. It doesn't kind of dictate anything beyond that. That's all it really does. So as we go through the solstice, look at what's been going on the last couple weeks. Like I said, it's not like all of a sudden when the solstice, that exact moment, everything breaks apart. Normally it's a slow build. It's a slow build. And also look at what you've been dealing with the whole year. And look at kind of what we're getting up to. This is a pretty pivotal part, because by the time our next shift comes around and we get to the fall equinox, you're going to start getting into your new templates. You're going to start seeing what you're going to be doing next year. You might even start doing it. If you're going to be moving, you might start that process. You might actually move. You're supposed to connect with different people. You might start to see that come in then. So right now it's a big clearing out phase. You know, it's a big getting our stuff clean. It's about not carrying it forward, not carrying the stories forward. Look at the stories, and if you can't figure it out, close your eyes, which disconnects your brain. Close your eyes, center, and breathe, and then feel into it. Feel into it. Don't look at it. These, they don't show you anything. All they show you, they are not the windows to the soul. It's the biggest misnomer ever. They're not. They're just show you the window dressing on an illusion. Now, that illusion is going to show you a lot of stuff that's going on inside, because it is just a mirror. But we create the illusion. We create the story. And eventually, we don't need the story anymore. Can we, at this point, you might just get to this point where you can just create a little higher version of that story. Still a story, but it sounds a little bit better than the other story I had. Which puts me in a different timeline, because it shifts my frequency. Which means now I have all these other experiences I can have because I'm in a different frequency now. Just because I shift my story. It doesn't have to be, you know, everyone's waiting for this big thing they have to do. Or if they can't do the big thing, they don't want to do it. Not realizing that it's the little things. It's the teeny tiny things that you do every day that make the biggest difference. It's not the big stuff. Technically, we're not even ready to handle the big stuff yet till we show we can handle the little stuff. You know, if we can't connect with one person, don't worry about connecting with 50,000 people. It doesn't matter. It's the person to person that matters. It's our relationships that matter. All this other stuff, it's just kind of other ways to activate. Maybe a way I can say it. I'm not really sure where I was going with that. I kind of lost my my frequency on that one to see where it was actually going. The most important thing we're going to do is show others who we are, and show others where our priorities are. Because you get to a certain place where you can see everyone's priorities. I can see everyone's priorities before they walk through my door. I can feel when my priorities are skewed. And I can see when something is a priority. You know, so if you're even saying, well, if you find yourself saying, I don't have time to do that, or or someone else says that to you, I don't have time to do that, I don't have time to do that, shift that. It's not a priority to them. Don't be angry about it. Look at what's not a priority for them. What is that showing you? Maybe they're not part of your next timeline. It's the same thing when we have to do it to ourselves too. What is not a priority for me? What is not something I'm doing? And why isn't it a priority? Do I have a story around why it's not a priority? Or is it just not something I want to do? What's going on? We have to be able to look inside to see what's going on, to see where we're holding it in our body. This is a great time, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, You know, the weather's warm, getting outside and really focusing on being out on Gaia. What is going on in my body? When I'm in a certain situation, what part of my body's tightening up? What's going on? We have to be able to ask these questions. We have to be able to ask these questions, and don't be, you know, really taken aback by the answer. Don't judge the answer. It doesn't matter. And as I look through this camera, you also are going to notice, which I have noticed so much lately, as we expand and as our body shifts, our foreheads will get bigger. I used to hear people saying that your forehead's going to get bigger. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of ludicrous. And now I can really tell that my forehead is getting kind of bigger. So if you're in that phase, it's okay too. Our foreheads might get bigger. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But I think I'm going to end on that note. So, okay, happy solstice. Look at where you are. Look at where we're putting the pedestals on people, and look at where we're not even giving someone a little box to step on because we're too pissed off about something. Okay, bye.